So coming up next is Molly Dince. So she's in town from New York, and she works for Google. So she's our agency development manager for Drum, and she has a fantastic presentation. So let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you. So thank you, Dave, and thank you, Dan. That was very interesting, and it definitely brought me back to my business school corporate valuation class. So that was a great reminder of everything that I learned and need to relearn now. So hopefully what I'm going to be talking about today will also build on a lot of the themes that we've covered. Interestingly enough, I didn't realize we would be talking about Wayfair in so much detail. I too have a case study about Wayfair, taking a slightly different position, but hopefully that'll spark some really interesting lunch conversation in just 30 minutes. So with that, funny how these things happen, right? So I'm going to be talking today about marketing in the age of assistance. And to kick things off, I thought before I get into all of the cool, exciting new technology that we have available to us in this age of assistance, I would talk about every marketer's favorite pastime topic, the smartphone. Mobile, we've talked about it for years now. Smartphones have been in the mass market really for 10 years, but yet the impact of mobile continues to evolve and it continues to shape consumer behavior in new ways. And one of the things that we've found in our most recent set of consumer research at Google is that the types of searches that people conduct from their mobile phones are increasingly focused on kind of mundane and very detailed kind of daily activities. And all of this amounts to the fact that people are just insatiably curious. By having so much access to information all the time at the tips of our fingers, we see triple-digit year-on-year increases in searches for olive oil or the best toothbrush. And the reason this matters to everyone in this room as marketers is because where we used to be able to define what are high consideration categories and low consideration categories, that power now belongs to the consumer. And so we as marketers have to think about how we respond when the consumer is the one who says, I'm going to spend a week researching the new toothbrush that I'm going to buy, and how we then message to them to get them into our customer experience. And the interesting point about this curiosity is that while consumers spend so much time researching, once they've decided that they want to take action, they want to take action immediately. So we see a 2 times increase in the same day shipping searches. We also see a 3x increase in open now searches and an 150% increase in searches for today and tonight. So think, haircut today, or where can I stay in a hotel tonight? And what all of this amounts to is that consumers are more curious, they're more impatient, and they're more demanding of technology than ever before. And the way that technology has to respond, as well as brands need to respond, is by being helpful, personal, and frictionless. And we're going to keep coming back to these 3 ideas as we walk through kind of what it means to win in this age of assistance. So what does that look like in terms of technology innovation? Well, here's an example of the Google Lens. It's a new capability that's available on Pixel devices where you can essentially hold up the camera to any physical entity around you and learn what you're looking at and learn the history and learn the background of what you're seeing in the physical world. It is bridging the physical world with digital information in a helpful, personal, and frictionless way. So that still is sort of the guiding principle here. Similarly, voice search. We're not the only ones out there doing this, but the idea here is that you can speak to your device in an incredibly just like your friend. You can open up your phone and say, hey, Google, what's the weather today? And you don't expect Google to respond, where do you live, or what location are you in? You expect Google to know what location you're in and to find out the weather in your neighborhood. And the last example, I don't know if anyone has tried Google Photos, but if you've ever tried to organize your albums or your memories on a phone before, I've at least run into issues doing that. this has become a really seamless way to actually search for your images, search for your memories, and then put them into one album with basically one search term and one click of the button. So these are examples of how technology, and specifically Google, is responding to the helpful, personal, and frictionless criteria. So what all of this can be summed up as, though, is assistance. So assistance, let me first clarify, does not necessarily equal voice search. Voice search, or the use of Alexa or the Google Assistant, assistance is a very old concept in a lot of ways. It's how do I deliver something to somebody in the moment that they need it? And what we're seeing here, Wayfair, very timely. Maybe they need to focus less on this app and more on their corporate valuation. But they've created a way for consumers to actually open up an app, simulate what it would look like for you to buy one of their pieces of furniture, drop it into your home where you might actually set it up, and then make the purchase in a couple more steps. So perhaps this will help them retain some customers over time too. We'll see. But maybe it is an acquisition ploy. We'll see. Only time will tell. But this is a great example of how technology plus brands can equal assistance. So as we walk through how you can apply this, we're going to talk about 3 different stages: showing up, leveling up, and speeding up. So to start with showing up, we've talked about this probably, or you've heard about this whole concept of showing up on your brand terms, showing up in the search network, showing up on the display network, why it's so important in order to beat your competition. But there's a new twist to this, which is you need to show up in ways that are helpful. It's not just enough to show up when somebody looks for your brand term. So here's an example. In the past 5 years, foot traffic in retail stores has declined by 57%, but the value of each visit has nearly tripled. It's a little confusing, right? Why do we think that is? Well, what we're finding is that people, shoppers, are much more purposeful today. They've spent hours and hours doing research online, and then when they're ready, they drive to a store. And instead of kind of walking around, going up and down the aisles, they know what they want, and they go and they buy it. And we see this echoed in the search behavior. So 3 in 4 people who conduct a local search on their phone will visit a place within 24 hours. And 81% of shoppers checked whether a product was in stock before heading to a store to buy it. Those are pretty high percentages. People really don't want to waste their time before they go to a store. And so our answer at Google was to develop local inventory ads. These are ads where you're able to actually see that the store is carrying your product in stock before you go and make the purchase. And the great thing about these ads is that they actually drive people to your physical store. This is not just about making something a click away. It's about giving more helpful information to people who are actually looking, not just to find out your location, hours or how to buy something online, but really they want to go to your store. They just want the information before they leave their house. And this is a quick look at what these local inventory ads look like. We're continuously developing them with more features, swipeable features. They keep evolving, and they're pretty exciting. The latest update to them is all the way here on the right, which is our integration with the assistant. So now if you're running local inventory ads, you're also eligible to run on the Google Assistant. So people who are conducting voice searches, hey Google, where can I buy Tide, if you're looking for detergent? Google will respond and tell you where the closest place nearby is to buy your detergent. And a couple of words, because I think there's a lot of interest in voice search today. So a couple of quick facts about how voice search is evolving. We don't know everything, but we have a few quick learnings. What we found so far is that there isn't a huge difference between the times of day that people use voice search or text search. They sort of follow the same trajectory. They peak later in the afternoon, and then they trail off at night when people are busy watching TV or catching up with family. Also, they tend to follow a similar word length. However, on the assistant with voice, we do see some of the queries are a little bit longer. So people tend to ask questions to the assistant, and so they end up being a few words longer than your normal text search. And lastly, we do see more non-brand or generic searches on the assistant versus text. So that's an example, too, of how people are trying to find information. They're not necessarily looking for a specific brand. So showing up. Consumers expect assistance everywhere. If your brand isn't there, another will be. But the caveat here is show up with helpful information. Leveling up. What does this mean? This means understanding your audience at a much deeper level and understanding the value that they bring to your bottom line in a real, by measuring their profit, their customer lifetime value. So one of the things we know about consumer behavior today is that nobody stays in the same place for very long, right? You're looking on your mobile phone, you're searching on your phone, and then you open up YouTube and you're watching a video or you're watching a clip from Saturday Night Live or something like that. And we're finding that the way that you capture attention today has to move across channels just the same way that your consumer is. And in the last year, we've seen conversions grow double, actually, as a result of YouTube ads. We're starting to see for the first time YouTube really turning what we call intent into action. And it's a really exciting opportunity for you to meet your audience on a new channel in unexpected ways and take advantage of things like these features, TrueView for Action, which is sort of it's the next evolution of your standard TrueView ad, where you can tell your brand story, tell your brand narrative, but you actually get to now include a call to action. And so throughout your ad, you'll have a button that says, visit our store, buy from our site, and we're seeing incredible results for conversions from this channel. Now, why is this important to understanding your audience, to come back to this idea of leveling up? Well, if we know that people are searching on Google search or on their mobile phone, and then they're moving to YouTube, they're going back to search, we need to understand why they're doing that, right? What is driving them to keep looking for more information in all of these different channels? And one of the insights that we need to understand is how consumers' purchase behavior changes with life events and with milestones. And what we've done to really capitalize on this information is to understand, so in this example, someone who's a few months out from getting married, if someone's searching for wedding dresses, watching makeup tutorials on YouTube, downloading an app called The Knot, which is a bridal magazine from the Google Play Store, we can start to piece together information about who she is. And we've come out with a new audience capability that can actually find somebody like that 3 months before their milestone, such as getting married, and 3 months after that milestone, and keep the conversation going with them. So in the case of someone who's getting married, so from the last example, you might want to serve them ads for if you're an airline or you're a hotel, for their honeymoon, right? Where you have ad copy text that says that, makes it very clear that you want to be part of planning their honeymoon experience. We see a lot of hospitality taking advantage of that kind of capability. We also have something called consumer patterns. This taps into people who are identified as, in this case, as someone who's a frequent grocery shopper or someone who is the primary chef within the house, and you can bring them ads that align with their interests. Maybe it's CPG ads or food and beverage ads. So we're starting to understand much deeper level kinds of insights about our audience and being able to bring them across YouTube, across search, and allow you to actually understand who your most valuable customers are. Sonos is a great example here. They really took advantage of this life events targeting capability, and they started running YouTube ads that reached people who were about to move, people who are about to get married, and people who are about to graduate from college, thinking that those people might be the people who are decorating a new home, who are interested in gifts, bigger kind of ticket price gifts, and they're doing research on what speakers to buy. And we saw fantastic results. They ran what we call a brand lift study, where we actually run a YouTube flight for about 7 to 14 days, and then we send you a very lengthy report that breaks down all of the uplift in awareness, in purchase intent, and we break it down across different demographics and consumers, and we saw great results for them. So what all of this comes down to is that not all customers are created equal, and that's okay, right? We tend to think about the average customer, the message that will resonate with them, but it's okay to think about your customers in silos. And by that same token, not all marketing metrics are created equal. We shouldn't be using a single metric to account for the value of these different audiences, because they actually mean very different things for your bottom line. So we've been working with our agencies. My team at Google is focused specifically on working with premier partner agencies like Drum, and we've been working with our agencies to help them move their marketing metrics with their clients away from just the efficiency metrics of yesterday, right? We used to just talk about clicks and how many clicks can we get, and now talking more about profit. And that's a big shift, and I know it's been echoed today, really understanding kind of the value of your marketing investment, but it's an important one, and the pinnacle of all of this is to move to CLV, is to think about what is the value to your bottom line of the money you're putting into AdWords, right? And how does that play out over your customer's lifetime and their value to you as a customer? This whole theory isn't probably all that new to people. The 80-20 principle is something that people apply across industries, and it's seen here as well in marketing, where you have 20% of your customers driving 80% of your profit. We find this to be true throughout examples that we've studied in our consumer surveys and our brand studies. And so from that vantage point, it's even more important to focus on your audiences, segmenting them, and understanding their value. So let's do a little activity before we go to lunch. In this scenario, which advertiser is doing better? Any guesses? I won't put you on the spot. That's okay. It depends. We do know from that last slide that the margin for each conversion is the same, right? Because we know in the first example that the $50 CPA versus an $100 CPA, and you have a $20 ROI versus a $10 ROI. But let me back up for a second. If you look at this again, just at face value, a $50 CPA sounds better than an $100 CPA, right? For the most part. And a 20-to-1 ROI sounds better than a 10-to-1 ROI. But the question is, how much volume can you generate at that CPA, at that cost? And here, what you see is the number of conversions are very different. At a $100 CPA, you're able to generate $30. At a $50 CPA, you can generate 10. And ultimately, the difference here comes down to profit. This is not applying a margin because we don't know information about this client, but if you're just looking at profit as revenue minus the cost, you end up with $9,500 in profit for advertiser A and $27,000 for advertiser B. And this is why we're working to help clients understand the value of measuring profitability and thinking about profitability in terms of their audience segments, because you can grow so much just by understanding the trade-off between price and volume, between profit and efficiency. So I'll leave you with the question of asking how does your business value its most loyal customers, and how are you approaching your marketing investment? How are you measuring it? Are you using an efficiency model like CPA or ROAS, return on ad spend, or are you thinking about the profit that you're driving to the bottom line? And you have a great partner here in Drum and a lot of resources from Google that can help you come to the right metrics and metrics that are helpful. The last example I want to speak to is about how to win in this age of assistance is speed. We've talked so much about speed over the last several years, so this may not be new to some of you, but we find that 53% of all website visits are abandoned if a mobile site takes more than 3 seconds to load. 3 seconds, and this is on a 3G connection. Meanwhile, the average mobile page takes 15 seconds. So you really don't want to be in that latter bucket, right, of the 15-second websites. Because we know that speed is so important to user experience, it's the difference between someone staying on a site or purchasing is becoming a ranking factor for organic searches. So we're now bringing this same attention to speed to our organic listings. So it's important for advertisers to be aware of that. To help you make the most of this opportunity and to really improve on this fact, we've introduced a new speed scorecard. You can find this on thinkwithgoogle.com, and you can actually put in your URL, and you can compare yourself to your competitors to see how your speed stacks up with your competitors' speeds. And we actually have taken this to the next level, and we also have an impact calculator, where we can now actually estimate the amount of lost revenue or lost business as a result of your site speed, and we can predict how much business you will retain or grow by reducing your site speed. And you see that on the sliding scale at the bottom there. So to sum up speed, it's table stakes, but the bar keeps rising. So really pay attention to that, when you're developing your mobile site speed. Ultimately, brands that are going to succeed today are going to be fast, they're going to be frictionless, and this mobile speed can also be seen as a huge competitive advantage. It's not just a scary concept, right? Like if I don't have a great site speed, I'm in trouble. It can also be a huge competitive advantage. So to wrap things up, the age of assistance, it's here, it's already begun. We know what it takes to succeed. It's about being helpful, personal, frictionless. But the exciting part about it is that it's really the new battleground for growth. If you're going to grow today as a company, it's going to be because you deliver this really frictionless experience, a helpful experience, and a personal one. And if you keep assistance as sort of your North Star when you're developing your experiences, we're finding that the rest will follow. So thank you.